In what I could only describe as a literal last option, there's a group in Chicago essentially getting on their hands and knees begging criminals to not do gang-related activity from the hours of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the whole reason behind this is because there's too many instances of little kids getting shot, young boys getting shot, pregnant women getting shot, and the elderly getting shot. And you know, when you hear the pleas and you read what they're saying and what they're asking for, and you're reading how there are even some people who are looking at it and saying, we live in this social media age where everything's trendy and we're seeing a bunch of negative things trend. Why not make a positive thing trend? And I would sit here and agree and support this 100% if it were not for the thing that's itching me in the back of my head, that has come to the front of my head, which is why now? After all this time, all these years of this problem, why now? Is it because it's coming closer and closer to your doorstep? Is it becoming an issue that affects every area or just your area? Because we're specifically talking about Chicago of all places. And if you spend time looking at Chicago news, you'll find out that there's a problem revolving around guns almost every day, if not a few days in between.
Judy, the father of the young man with disabilities, tells me he's undergone surgery to remove bone fragments from his skull. He's on oxygen to try to help him breathe. All of this after being mistakenly identified and targeted by gang members. While his 21-year-old son with disabilities fights for his life in the hospital, Philip Riga says he's angry.
Furious. I mean, I really want to do something about it, but I can't.
Riga says he was holding one of his kids' hand while his son Jesus was standing next to him as they waited for the school bus at 6:30 Wednesday morning. That's when he says three men began yelling at them, mistaking them for gang members, and opened fire, unleashing nearly 40 rounds.
He was standing right there, and I couldn't get him in time, and the bullets just kept coming.
People as residents and people here have to say enough is enough. When it comes to something like this, is that we have to say, we're tired of it.
Oscar Contreras with the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council, who has a son with disabilities himself, says he's seeing younger and younger kids getting involved with gangs. He's calling on parents to step up, get involved, and for the community to engage with police.
Each one of these kids that are out there that are pulling that trigger has a mother and father. But we have to stop being blind to what our kids are doing and how are we allowing that, we're in denial that my kid's a gang member, my kid's this, until we start, like I says, until the community realizes and says, we're tired of this, I don't think nothing's really going to change.
They got to start speaking up and start reporting this stuff. That's all I got to say, because everybody stays kind of to themselves and be quiet. But if they start speaking up, maybe this stuff will stop happening.
And so far, no one is in custody tonight while this young man has a long road ahead of him. Doctors say he has a 50-50 chance of losing his sight and taste.
So why now, after all this time, are we clamoring for this last-ditch effort to beg criminals to not do criminal things? You can sit there and you could give me any repetitive excuse out of the book about reparations, white guilt, redlining, how people are poor and that means they commit crimes. All this time has gone by. Nobody's thought of any other solution besides essentially begging people to not do this. You are putting unique trust in a group of people who more than likely will or will not do it. Yes, you have some people who report that, hey, I've talked to some gang members and they seem pretty okay with this idea. And that is putting the ultimate trust in some people who have a track record of not being very positive for being around the community. And, I would want to have hope. I would want to say, you know what, maybe this could be the thing that breaks the ice and we could create a positive change, because waiting on the government is not really the best idea. And these people even admit that. They want to solve the problem and get it done now, not get it done by the hands of legislation, because in case any of you don't know this, criminals don't care about the law. I know. What a shocker. But I'm struggling. I'm honestly struggling because if it took this long, all it really tells me is somebody personally got affected and now they want to be the one to solve the issue. It tells me that after all this time, nobody was really clamoring for a strong solution. Defund the police doesn't really work. Having a mayor that blames store owners for not doing enough to defend themselves.
Disappointed that they're not doing more to take safety and make it a priority. Still have retailers that won't institute plans like having security officers in their stores, making sure that they've got cameras.
Didn't really work. A new mayor, after all this time of how Beetlejuice sucked, a new mayor comes in and he's essentially being the scapegoat for criminal activity, turning into a bitch when anybody calls criminals criminals.
Is wrong. We have to keep them safe as well. Have you ever taught middle school? I have. Have you ever raised young people? Do you understand the risk that young people take just because they're young? Do you know that home plate is at the bottom of my stairs? I found that out when my son was sliding down those stairs trying to score. They're young. Sometimes they make silly decisions. They do. And so we have to make sure that we are investing to make sure that young people know that they are supported.
Is that the answer? To loot because it's a form of reparations? To loot because that's how they can eat?
The real answer is, how do we make sure, the question is, how do we make sure that people can eat? Look, no one is going to condone, behavior that quite frankly speaks to a level of desperation.
So you're not condoning looting?
I'm saying that people are acting out of desperation. We don't want a society that is acting out of desperation, but you have to pay attention to the cries that people have.
So you're not condoning looting?
There's no way to embrace that. What I'm saying is you can't condone the looting that corporations continue to do every single day when they take tax dollars from black, brown, white folks all over the city of Chicago so that they can turn a profit.
It is odd that it's taken all this time to get to a point where you essentially gotta get on your knees and beg and hope that a criminal doesn't do something at a specific time. Because yes, kids should not be getting shot in broad daylight. Yes, parents should be monitoring where their child is past a certain point. If you live in a certain area, why are you not aware of where your child is? You are an irresponsible parent. But to say all that and combine it together, I'm struggling to understand how it's so bad we get to a point where we gotta beg criminals to not do criminal activity. Because if it were me, I'm not putting my trust in people who are known for not being trustworthy. I'm sorry, it's impossible for me to do that. Maybe these people who are doing this are stronger willed than me. Hell, they are for essentially doing this and announcing it to the public anyway. But for me, I wouldn't be putting my trust in these people. I would try to find some other solution. Well, what is another solution, Leon, since you're so smart, you damn smart ass? I'm comfortable in my own ways and saying, I don't have a solution at the current moment. Give me some time. Maybe I could come up with something a lot better than essentially walking up to somebody or broadcasting my wants and hopes for society amongst people who do not respect society and say, could you please respect the hours and do your criminal activity at the darkest of night where no one is around? I even think in that article, they mention how, hey, there are a few of you that don't know how to solve your beef with civil dialect. So can you just do it where no one else can find you? Essentially still allowing criminal activity, but doing it somewhere no one cares about and no one will see. So it's effectively not really solving anything. You're just putting a Band-Aid and a blindfold on a gunshot wound. Things like this, they make me a little bit hopeful, but then they make me skeptical because how, I know I've said it numerous times so far in this video, but how have we come to a point where it's that bad that we gotta beg people to not do criminal activity? Because the law didn't work, maybe a Disney Channel speech will work for the meanwhile. And I don't have any other way to end this video. I would love to know what you people think in the comment section down below. below, because I personally think this is not going to work for the long run. It may help for like a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but in the long run, I don't see this happening. I don't see this working. I don't really see this being effective. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.